you ever been misunderstood by people outside from your culture, but they speak the same language as you? Well, we are now experiencing globalization era, where it is a new and complex phenomenon that brings out various economics, social and cultural fabrics of all societies. Next, I'm going to talk to you about how does this connect with our culture around the world. Well, we know that connections transcends borders and cultures. With nowadays, we use English as a prominent language to bridge cultures, to bridge people around the world in terms of education, work and businesses. In Malaysia, we live in a multicultural society where we speak English dominantly, especially in our
Daily interaction
in our businesses.
Yeah.
Yes. So, my name is Nurizati binti Khalid Saifullah.
I'm Adam Hakimi bin Muhammad Azhar.
My name is Wandar Ifadiana binti Muhammad Zulkifli.
Today, we are going to address the gaps in Malaysia which involves in intercultural issues. So, let's talk about the first issue. Mr. Adam, do you want to start?
Yes, let me start ahead by giving both of you the fact of the English language.
Yes.
First of all, the English serve as one of the most prominent language in the world. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, it is one of the most spoken language and the major lingua franca in our world.
Oh.
Oh yes. Do you know how many people speak English?
No. Do
Take
you
a
mind?
guess.
1 billion.
Take a guess.
Maybe 80%.
Both of you are wrong. It is 450 million people.
Wow.
That's
Impressive.
that's the native speaker.
Oh.
For the people who use English for their second language, approximately 1 billion.
Oh, that's
I guess it's correct.
Yeah,
I guess it's
correct.
correct.
So let me go ahead and state a fact. Another fact.
Yes.
Kaharudin in his study stated that English language
Yes.
is a global form of interaction.
Wow.
Well, because people are connected to one another based on the sole foundation of language.
Oh.
So English serves as the language that people talk most of the time and use to interact most of the time. Create a sense of we use English every time we meet another person without mentioning their background. So let's say if I don't know who you are and where you are from, I will try to use English as my first instinct to talk to you. But you are a Malay and I am a Malay, so we use English as a second language. So that's the other part. I will delve deeper into that. Secondly, I think I'm going to talk about the culture aspect of that. When we talk about language and culture, do you guys agree that do you think that it is heavily related to one another?
Yeah. Definitely. Do you guys agree with us, our dearest audience?
Thank you. So one thing that needed to be noted is that culture and language is heavily related and ties to the very first concept of human civilization. Because back then, people create culture based on what they understand. So if we understand language, we understand the culture. People use language inside religion, custom, tradition, and basically all of things that are related to cultural interaction and cultural influence. So moving on, I think Ifah might want to add.
Yeah, I agree about what you say, how language is greatly related to the culture, because I've read somewhere that language reflects one's culture. By the way we speak, the way we talk, it shows our cultural background. For instance, even in our country, when we speak English, it shows our culture as a Malaysian, because we know there are many types, many varieties of English, right? And in our country, we practice Malaysian English in our daily conversation. However, there are certain contexts, certain contexts like informal contexts or formal settings like school, we are encouraged to use British English.
So, my dearest audience, we are going to give you hands out of our top I mean, you can see the outline of what we are talking about, so you get the gist of it. I hope so. So these are the hands up.
Please take their hands up.
Hands up. Hands up.
Alright, I will hand it up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Moving on to the next one, I want to talk about one issue in the intercultural context where it put gaps in global society.
Agree.
The first one is social stratification. I'm going to talk in Malaysia in the context of Malaysia. Do you know that in Malaysia we are the second language. We use English as second language, right?
Right.
So we talk English widely in our daily conversation, in businesses like I mentioned just now, in
And basically every needs of communication is related to English in Malaysia.
Yes.
But it is in the second language form, not the native language.
yeah. So an English proficiency for me it is closely tied to social stratification, with the language acting as a medium to economic and educational opportunities. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. We can see this in educational institutions, in conferences, international, and according to a comparative study made among learners in selected rural and urban areas, the average proficiency test score in student rural areas was 63.7%, while urban students achieve an average score of 75.5%, whereas rural students attain only 51.9%. This shows that there are 23.4% contrast between the two groups. Don't you think that this is very concerning, Adam and Ifa?
Yes.
It is very concerning, right? So this is the evidence that shows that people living in rural areas coming from a lower income families might not have the sufficient access or the same access to higher education, to a quality education, especially English language education, resulting in a significant gaps of
Social interaction.
social interaction. Yes. So this disparity has made the Ministry of Education, English language teachers, and parents are seriously concerned about the decline of the standard of the English language. This is because people, like a lot of people from rural areas, they can't really leverage the use of English, proper English. We can see this in all over the social media, like in TikTok, Facebook. They try to speak English, but however, it is not in a professional manner. I'm not like, this is not a critique, but for me it shows the gaps between education
awareness.
Educated people and non-educated people.
Okay.
Where educated people mostly came from urban areas.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes. So this also shows that people or individuals that are more proficient in English are more too open to job prospects, particularly in urban areas where English is the dominant language in business and international communication. However, I think there are government policies aimed to improve English proficiency. Have you ever heard of English Language Roadmap 2015 to 2025?
Never.
I'm going to tell you about that.
Okay.
However, even though that this roadmap has been introduced, the gap between urban and rural areas to quality English education remains a significant challenge, as we can see today.
Yes.
Like I mentioned, we can see it when we talk with others. Even when we talk English with others, some might perceive it as you being
Arrogance.
Yeah, arrogant. I
Yes.
mean, it's not good, right?
Yes.
We have to put we have to like cut the stereotype, cut the negative view of English itself. And for me, how to fix this is I believe more English programs should be implemented in rural areas to ensure fairness and equal quality education for them to learn English, for the new generation to learn English better, to be more proficient, so that they are ready to be to compete in a globalized world where they can improve and align with the Madani generation.
Yes, I agree.
Yes. So any questions from the members of the floor?
Is there any question?
Is there any question?
Not for now?
Not for now?
Not for now. Alright.
You might want to ask us about how maybe the strategies or maybe how to close the gaps between these rural and urban areas.
Maybe the government effort.
What is the government effort?
Like I mentioned just now, the English language roadmap 2015 to 2025 is still an ongoing program. It's a program, and there's a lot of programs that has been advocated for learners in Malaysia. However, it is not really working because as we can see in Sabah and Sarawak, in rural areas, like common rural areas, that the programs and the access to education there is not as good as people in urban areas. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reports and there's a lot of experience that has been told in social media by all these people that they want to access, but they don't have the They don't have the necessities to do so. So, moving on to the next one, we are going to talk. Who are going to do next?
I think before we run go next.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. After hearing about what is shared just now, I would like to add another issue that is raising concerns, especially in our societies. So the issues that I want to bring up is about the language confusion among learners.
Alright.
So in our society, we know that we are in our daily life, we are always exposed. We get many exposure to many varieties of English, and particularly American and British English, right?
Yeah.
So these varieties of English can lead to confusion and inconsistency in language use, especially among English language learners. So why do I say so?
Yes.
As we know, historically, our country, Malaysia, has deep relation with British because in the past we had been colonized by them.
Yeah.
So the British influence in our country has been going on even until today, because we can see Malaysia's education system traditionally follows British English,
Definitely.
particularly received pronunciation, otherwise known as RP.
Oh.
Do you guys know that?
Yes.
Oh.
Also the British spelling conventions, because in our classroom, in our schools, we are taught to use British English. However, nowadays we can see American English, largely through media, entertainment, and digital platforms, has become increasingly influential in recent years. I would like to cite an article where the author named Nobody highlight how this dual exposure often leads to students mixing between British and American English in their speech and writing. For instance, I believe that maybe some of us might have done this before. Like in our essay, we use British English in one sentence and American English in another sentence, like writing colour, which is spelled C-O-L-O-U-R, in one part of the essay, and spelled honour, H-O-N-O-R, in another part of the essay. This shows a contrast between both American and British English. So, this mixing of dialects creates challenges in both academic and professional contexts. For students, inconsistency in language use can result in the lower grades for the assessments, because in formal assessments,
Yes.
the consistency is the key to get good grades, right? And this is because examiners or the teachers may perceive students as being careless or lacking in language mastery, even if the contents itself is technically correct, because the limits between the varieties of English. And meanwhile, in the professional settings, particularly in multinational companies, inconsistency in English use may hurt the candidates or the speaker's professional image. Because we know, as I mentioned before, in British English and American English, there are significant difference when it comes to the pronunciation or the vocabularies. For instance, in British English, they use trainers instead of sneakers, or flat instead of apartment. So these differences can lead to miscommunication, especially when learners are not aware, they are not familiar with the differences between the two English. So, you want to add anything?
I think that's a very good point about the British English, American English, and Malaysian English. That's a good niche, don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
That's very good.
About that, I think one of the most common problem that we face when we use these varieties of English in a formal context is that, let's say we were to meet a British person, we are to meet them, and then we use Malaysian English to them. So like we use words such as that is related to our culture but not to them. For instance, the use of coffee shop. They might be confused and they might think that we are insane to use that kind of phrase. Not insane. Probably they think we are not aware of the English language itself. They will think that what is coffee shop? What is it? Because they are used to the word cafe, and we use coffee shop because back then people who were colonized, they go to the shop and they drink coffee. The same way the British did, but we use the phrase coffee shop into a direct translation of our native spoken language, which is the Malay word.
Kedai kopi.
Kedai. Yeah. So, not only this word, but let's say if we were to meet other people who use other form of English, such as American English, and we use the term coffee shop again, they will still not understand. The language itself is the same, it's still English, but it is different from Malaysian, British, and American. So how do we adapt to this? Is that we have one formal setting that include language proficiency as a core of communication style. So communication style is important in this part. So let's say we use only one standardized English version. In Malaysia we use the British English, right? Learning in the British English is important, but at the same time we must acknowledge our culture and our touch on the English language. We still must acknowledge the Malaysian English and how we use it among ourselves, among the Malaysian. So by incorporating this, we still learn English language on a standardized communication style, which is the British English, but we are aware of the uniqueness and the custom viewpoint of our Malaysian standard English. This is a very important aspect, I think, to put into perception, because English is something that different from one places to another. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
And we learn about Mesolak, Ecolak, and all of that language varieties.
Yeah.
One of the major point in that aspect is that when we are communicating in English, the dialect and slang differs from place to place.
Yes.
Let's say in Malaysian English, the most informal use of language is the Singaporean language of English and Malaysian Manglish.
Yeah,
Manglish. We use word like lah and apau, yeah, and the grammatical part is also all over the place. So the communication is hard because people who think they still understand English because they use Manglish, but when they communicate with people who use formal form of English, which is the British English, they will face the problem. Let's say if a hawker stall, a person who manage the hawker stall use Manglish, and then he meets a British person who speak in a formal English of British English, and then they communicate. They will have a very hard time to understand one another.
Yeah.
But both of them still use English, but different. So that's the uniqueness of, I think, the English language itself and the varieties of English that we need to solve the problem by creating a formalized English learning environment in our country.
So, moving on to the next issue, I think that people have different sensitivity, especially in our society. So, this is why we can mirror the problem of intercultural, where there's cultural sensitivity in language proficiency. When we can see that cultural insensitivity is a significant issue in intercultural communication, particularly when non-native English speakers are judged or ridiculed for their language abilities. This can be seen in social media like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. As example, Ifa is a non-native speaker while Adam is a native speaker.
Yes.
When you talk in social media, Ifa might be less proficient than Adam. So when they talk together, Adam might be ridiculed by what Ifa said, and he might mock Ifa. I think there is where this cultural insensitivity can be seen, because we must acknowledge that different people have different exposure to English education, English language since they were little. Like Adam, he might be raised as a person, as a native in an environment where he speaks English, while Ifa is a non-native speaker where the mother tongue is in Malay.
Yes.
So I'm going to support this with Plata, an author, when he said that, and he argued that cultural insensitivity can diminish learners' confidence, motivation, and dignity. So in today's world, as we all know, social media has amplified these issues, with non-native speakers often facing criticism for their accents, grammar, or vocabulary. This is not only in intercultural context, but we can see it in Malaysian context as well. Even among Malaysians, we mock each other who cannot speak English properly.
Very true.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, I once got criticized in Twitter because I used wrong grammatical term, and someone has like a better English proficiency. He mocks me on that. So, yes, very bad.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have happened.
Huh?
That shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Like in our society, like you mentioned before, there are people who are born in a family that use English in their everyday life, but there are people who just start learning English when they go to school.
Yeah.
So there might be slightly different in when it comes to the fluency. In
Yeah,
language.
definitely. Because as an example, we use a match made in heaven for couple that looks good together. But in Malay, we say bagai pinang dibelah dua, but it is translated like a nut divided by two.
Don't make sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like imagine if you are a non-native speaker, a Malay, trying to translate a match made in heaven when you see a British couple and you say that like a nut divided by two. Won't you be ridiculed?
Very much.
Yes, you will mock them.
Yes.
Definitely. That is why
Delusional.
delusional. That's why we need to address these gaps, this proficiency problem to avoid cultural insensitivity. I mean, it's not depend on language proficiency itself, but also we must have mutual respect between users of social media, between societies. Even though we came from different background, we must know that everyone is learning. So I think we need to advocate for social sensitivity and create environments where non-native speakers feel supported, not judged. So by doing so, we can foster a more inclusive dialogue that can make people communicate in better we can value diverse of perspective and encourage participation from all individuals regardless of their language proficiency. I mean, this is not applied internationally when we speak with native speaker, but also between us Malaysians. If we see someone that is not really good in English, we shouldn't mock them or like belittles them for their effort. Maybe we can help them to fix their English. Like Adam, can you speak to me in a very wrong English?
Let me give an example. I think I can speak to you like now in English.
You see, even though Adam is not really proficient, he translate directed from Malay language.
Yeah.
We should not belittle Adam because Adam is trying.
It's best.
Yes, he's best. If I mock like Adam, why you speak like that, Adam? That's very bad, Adam. What will you feel?
I'm sorry. It's a very it's a rude thing.
Yeah, and you feel like I belittled you, right?
Yeah,
You
it's-
feel like I degrade you.
Yeah, it's my dignity.
When
Yeah.
someone did that, like, you will feel less confident to speak in English. And
Yeah.
one day maybe they don't want to speak in English anymore because they feel like they might make mistake and
Yeah.
people might laugh at them.
They will not learn.
Yes, and as future teachers, we should not belittle or degrade others because for me, everyone learns differently. Everyone has their own specialties. What Adam has doesn't mean that I have it too. I mean, yes,
Yes, I agree with that. Everyone have
their own
specialty.
specialties. Yes. So for me, I think that's how we bridge our culture, bridge our differences. Even though that we are non-native speakers speaking with native speakers, we shouldn't mock or belittle anyone.
I agree.
Yeah. So
I think Ifah might want to add on.
yeah.
It's like this has mentioned before. I feel like when we speak English, even if you are not fluent in English, but when people appreciate us, like maybe they support and encourage us, it gives us a sense of accomplishment, and it will
Yes.
boost our confidence to speak more in English and maybe learn more to do better. I mean, for me, when I was in primary school, I was at first I was very bad in English. But then at some point I met a teacher who taught me the language, and she managed to make me start to like the language, and since then I managed to score in the language. However, I was still not fluent in the language. However, my friends and my teachers at that time, they supported me, and basically they tried to encourage me to use the language, and I think that helped a lot for me until I become who I am today. Because at that time is where I started to like the language.
Oh, I can add on that.
I am proud of you, Ifah.
Oh.
Yes.
I can add on that. Where in my case, I'm the one who give the encouragement to others. You know, when I was texting this one person, I was texting in English, basic English that we all do. But then he had a very bad grammatical terms. He used
Wrong
like
grammatical
yeah. So and then he was like very apologetic. He keeps apologizing for it because he feels that I'm talking in like a good English while he doesn't, and he told me that I'm scared that I might be judged for that. So I think that's how you see. There's a lot of people is not aware of being sensitive, being
Yes.
sensitive to others. So I think it's important for us to cut the cycle, break down the negative cycle, and start a new one where we foster and we encourage people to speak English. Even when they speak wrongly, we can fix them.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree on that. And I want to touch on the role of technology in this part.
Yes.
So, nowadays in the 21st century, language and technology is interconnected. Do you guys agree?
Interconnected.
Yeah, you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. So, to put that statement that technology plays a crucial part in the modern language learning is an understatement, because everything and everywhere you go, you can see technology. Behind us, there's technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think by learning English through this technology, make a speaker from different background and from different upbringing learn English more fluently and gain the language proficiency effectively. Yes. Yes.
Understood.
So people from all around the globe can access to multiple article, research paper, or even anything that is related to English education within their tips of finger.
Yeah.
And just press either phone or iPad, computer, tablet, just to access all of this information. And not only that, nowadays we have a system of assessment like examination that can help people from multiple backgrounds and people who trying to learn English to test on their level of English. For example, in Malaysia we have MUEX, which is the examination related to the 4 skills of English: speaking, listening, reading and writing. So that's MUET. We have MUET in Malaysia to test our language proficiency and what level we are. We use the band, right?
Yes.
The band level. So there is also other assessment system. This is all done thanks to the technological advancement too. Yes, we also have examination like IELTS, and we have ACTIS to assess the proficiency of English that people use. For instance, if people who are a native speaker of English, they are subjected to gain the C1 level or even the C2 level because they are the native speaker of the English language. But for people who are not from the English language speaking background, they might be on the level of A1, A2 and so on. Even might they be better than the native speaker themselves. They might even achieve C1 and C2. So I think by having all of this technology and assessment system, we can come together and bridge, like Izzati said, the problem that we have when we try to learn English. Moving on, when we are learning about technology, we must also underline the problem that we face, such as the non-verbal communication issue. For instance, if people communicate not using any facial or body language, just using the keyboard language, we still use English, but we didn't express. Yeah, with technology, and we didn't express that very well. And people might misunderstood that. For instance, if let's say we go onto Facebook and then we mix the English language with other form of language. For instance, the Manglish and Singaporean English, just like I mentioned. And this information that we posted or we texted in the social media, such as Facebook, is open to general public from all around the world, from people all around the world to access. So this might create a problem. For instance, you spreading misinformation, and you might share an information that is not right. So this is the problem that we face. Majorly in the English communication issue. For instance, if you publish an article that is wrong, or any research paper that is wrong, and then people who read that paper cite that or even use that as their reference, your paper is wrong. So they're misunderstood. So their source of information is wrong, and then you create a whole new problem because of your misunderstanding and your unawareness of your language proficiency within the use of technology in the 21st century learning.
That's a good point, Adam. Excellent.
Actually.
So, Ifa, do you want to say something?
I like when he said something about when you type, and we basically when we use technology, we like the body language parts, like that's important, especially when we are communicating. Like in my experience, I had a friend who tested me using caps lock, like full caps lock, and I was thinking like, oh, is she mad at me? Like, so I was thinking about that, and
I can relate to that.
yeah, like I'm sure someone has me like
I feel like being screamed at.
Yeah, I was like, is she mad at me? So I asked her if she's okay or did I do something wrong, and she said no, she just use caps lock for nothing.
Because it's
So
actually.
I think when we use technology, there's some something lacking, especially
Yeah.
when we are communicating, because it can lead to misunderstanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so.
Well, in my case, when people say okay, O and K, O, K, A, Y, I feel like they are like I did something to them.
Yeah.
I think that's related to
Technological
technology as
problem,
well.
yeah.
Yes, in the terms of language use.
It is a double-edged sword technology.
Yeah.
So.
However, I think that when we use emojis, like maybe like even if we use caps locks or like Izzati mentioned just now, like we use like very short reply, maybe we can add emojis just to show our emotion, like we are not mad at the other person.
Yes.
So maybe that can make up to the lack of body language and all that.
Yeah.
But sometimes using emojis might bring misunderstanding too.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I use
true.
kissing emojis all the time, and people think that I flirt.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so no.
There's people who when they laugh they use the crying
The crying
emoji.
emoji,
Yes,
you use that,
crying.
right?
I use.
No, you use
I use.
the skull thing.
Oh yes.
Yes.
I use that.
Yeah. So he wants to say that he's cooked. No, I mean he's like he messed up
Yes.
by using the skull emoji. I mean that is where the problems arise in the terms of technology,
Yes.
language use.
Let's touch on confusion, language confusion. Since we got more time, let's touch on language confusion.
I think. Let's talk about language confusion. I'm talking.
Yeah, everyone can talk.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yes.
Actually, I have thought about this before.
Oh yeah.
You have thought. But it's okay. We can.
However, I would like to address
Yes.
just now I say about how the confusion arises, especially among young learners when they're learning English, right? Because just like Adam mentioned earlier about how there are also Manglish and British English and American English. So for me, how to address this confusion, especially for among us as a future English teachers, I think what we can do is maybe giving the students clear guidance on how to differentiate between these English varieties. For instance, Malaysian English, Manglish, where we use in our daily life, and American and British English. And the students need to know when to use each of these varieties. And in formal writing, it is crucial to teach the students to stick to only one type of English for the sake of clarity and consistency. Just like we had been taught to use British English in our writing. However, we can also use American English as long as we stick to the one type of English. Yes. And schools also should also introduce learners to the concept of world Englishes, just like we had learned in this semester, because this can help them to understand that there are different varieties that exist around the world. There are also dialects, right?
Yeah.
And they are all equally valid in specific contexts. Like we can use that, but it depends on
It's not
the
wrong.
settings or the
Yeah.
context. Yeah. And this will prepare the students for the globalized nature of modern communication and help them to navigate English with confidence and flexibility.
I agree on that, yeah.
I agree too.
Yeah, I agree because I can relate to that when you talk about the Manglish. Because personally, I think I have problem in that where I overly use Manglish in my daily conversation because I was raised where my family institution and also my high school friends are mostly Chinese and Indians. So basically, we mix up English and Malay like all the time in our daily conversation. So I can write RP, received pronunciation in my writing. But when I speak, it reflects my cultural background. It reflects how I was raised, how I communicate with others, because that's just naturally me.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that. I mean, it's not wrong for us to speak, but it's rather inappropriate in formal setting.
Yeah. Which is why the awareness, right? The students need to know where and when to use each variety.
Oh,
Like we know British normally used in formal settings, while American and Malaysian English is usually used in less formal or like casual setting.
I agree. Now let's talk about generational language gaps. That you know that generational differences in language use can create communicational barriers, particularly when young people like us adopt new forms of English, such as slangs, abbreviations, and that differ from traditional norms. Like if I say to a 80-year-old grandma about Riz, do they know about that?
No, it's slang.
It's a slang. What about slay? Do we know about that?
Yeah.
Would they know about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely no. Because this is why generational language gaps exist, where two people from different generation talk English, but
Cannot understand one another.
one another, because the generation, the gap. I would like to add on the author Martello in 2005, where he highlights how younger speakers increasingly use informal language, including internet slangs. Additionally, this can alienate older generation who are more accustomed to traditional forms of English, where they might feel that they might perceive it as rude or
Yes.
something that very different, disrespectful, very different from their norm. Like if I say I want to race with a 80-year-old grandfather,
It
would you
wouldn't make
think-
sense.
It wouldn't make sense as the first. Secondly, they would say, what is this?
Yeah.
Because they have their own terms back then
Yes.
that we might not even understand.
Yes, what if that old grandfather suddenly made a joke and I said slay? Would he understand that?
He
Who
would
say
be
like-
very powerful. He would
No,
not
I
understand.
think he would not understand. Would be like,
What is
what is
that?
this girl? What is this
Yeah.
girl talking about? Yes, so this is how we see that this generational language gaps can lead to misunderstandings both within families and professional settings. When we talk about older people from different generation, like when we are Gen Z, if we talk to what millennials,
Millennial and baby boomer.
baby boomer, they're boomer, they don't understand that.
So I think I want to add on
Yeah.
the importance of us becoming a future teacher in this. Yes, because
Yes.
when we as a future teacher play an important role in this also, because let's say students, our future student may use terms that is not familiar with us.
Yeah.
On the topic of the generational language gap, because they will be accustomed to a different type of culture.
Yeah, they're different from us.
Yeah, they're different from us. We might have we live in a different culture from our grandparents, and they will live a different culture from us. They might even use language that is not related to English at all, but still be a part of English. They might be a new term, but is that English? No, it's not English. That's why we, as a future English teacher, must have the establishment of a standardized English, like I just mentioned. All in all, even though there are many varieties of English that we learn and we might face when we communicate with others, we must have the sole understanding and foundation of the English that we use can be used in a formal, professional, educational, and even the primary use of communication
Yes.
in daily use. And it's important to have this one standardized English version that we use.
Understandable by everyone.
Understandable by everyone, even though you are from different generation, background, religion, place, region, or even let's say you were from a different, very different
Different parts of the world.
different parts of the world.
Yes.
So having this understanding, we as teachers can help the student to also know this, and we
Yes.
can create awareness among them that learning English is not hard. You have this one English that you will always use, but you will have the English that is influenced by your generation or even your country.
Yeah, I think that's important for them to know how to differentiate. I mean, it's not wrong for them to have their own customs to English, but they must acknowledge that the right form of English is the RT, the received pronunciation,
pronunciation.
so that they can be understood by everyone, even crossing the
Boundaries.
crossing crossing the generational
What?
gap.
Oh, generational.
Yeah, we can talk with everyone.
Yeah.
Back to the generational language gaps. I think that young speakers may struggle to communicate effectively with other individuals, especially older individuals, because we came from different generation, right? So this can create tension, and reinforce stereotypes about language use across generation. And to address these gaps, what do you think, Adam?
To address this gap, I think we can promote mutual understanding among one another. Because even though the language is evolving, we can encourage an open discussion about this. This will effectively reduce the misinterpretation and misunderstanding among one another.
And can help bridge generational divide.
Yes.
And by recognizing the value of both traditional and contemporary form of language, we can create a more inclusive environment that celebrates linguistic diversity and promotes effective intercultural communication, even though we are from different generations.
Yes.
Right, Ifa?
Yes.
Don't you think it's right? Yes.
Yes.
Do you think? Do you get something new? Yes.
You learned something new today.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
I think we can conclude this talk. And Ifan, you want to conclude on what we were discussing today? All in all?
All in all, I think like that. As the topic of our talk today is about the intercultural issues, right? So I think we have to acknowledge that there are many issues that are related to the language in our world. And I think it is important for us to know that when we learn the language, there might be many challenges in the process of the learning. However, as a student myself, I think it is important for me to have the mindset that it is okay to make mistakes, especially when learning language, because undeniably learning language is not easy, right?
Yes.
Especially for us as students, we learn language, the English language, and I believe that is not easy. Even though there are this stereotype, maybe in the society that our course may be like easier compared to other course like mathematics or maybe engineering or other science
So
course.
there's a line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that every course it has their own difficulties, and
Yeah.
therefore, when we learn this language, we should be confident, and we should be confident because it is what we are specialized in. Or maybe we might not be the best at it, but
No.
we are still
We are
learning.
trying our best.
Yeah.
I think that is all. We will move on to the Q&A session.
Q&A session.
For that, thank you for tuning in and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate this so much.
So, moving on to the Q&A session, we will start the question from the audience.
Let's go.
Please state your name. Your thoughts on our talk, and what is your question.
Yay! Yes, great
I
one.
ask a question.
Yes. Can.
So I want to ask the first speaker, Adam.
Oh no.
My question is that how can English speakers avoid cultural stereotypes or misunderstandings when communicating in a multicultural environment?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
How can English speakers avoid cultural stereotypes or misunderstandings when communicating in a multicultural environment? For example, like you can see in the videos that American is making fun of British accent.
Oh yes.
But that's under my topic.
No,
So
it's-
how are you going to avoid that stereotypes that only British is the right English?
Let's begin to answer the question with this statement. There is no right English.
Yes.
Every English is right.
Right.
It is an opener, right? What a statement by me. So I think, from my standpoint, this is my personal opinion. When people from different places state that their English is right, for let's say Americans say their standardized version of English is right, but the British say their standardized version of English is right, let's use this understanding that if we were in that place, that English is right.
Yeah.
So if we are in America, we cannot use British English because in this place, American English is right. And if we go to Britain, we use British English because in that place, British English is right. So that is my answers. Hope.
Brilliant, Adam.
Thank you. Hope that answers your question.
Very helpful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I would like to ask the host, what cultural considerations should teachers of English be aware of when teaching students from diverse backgrounds?
Can you repeat?
No, it basically means like what are the cultural considerations that like what you have to know when you're teaching people from a lot of backgrounds.
I mean, like Adam mentioned just now, we must teach them on standardized English because we may have different custom, different because different upbringing, different culture. So we may perceive English differently, and we have our own slang, our own custom. So it's important for us as teachers to acknowledge that these differences are unique as it is, but also foster the education, English education, where received pronunciation is the standardized correctness of English, where they must use that in professional setting, and where the form that received pronunciation is a form where it is accepted in all settings.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, my last question for you all. In a globalized world, is it necessary to choose between British or American English, or should we embrace a hybrid form English?
So I would like to thank you, the members of the floor, for the question. So, to start with, there are some people who argue for the consistency, the importance of consistency in the type of language, while there are also people who suggest that in a globalized world, exposure to both varieties is beneficial. Now, we know that English is not a monolithic language, and Malaysian learners are likely to encounter both British and American English in various contexts in our life. So, embracing a hybrid form could reflect Malaysia's unique linguistic environment, because we know that in our country we have a multicultural society. Like we have Chinese people, Indian people, and also Malay people. Even among our people, there are some people who speak different types of English, right? So, embracing a hybrid form where multiple languages and dialects coexist, it is important. However, the key challenge is ensuring that learners understand the context in which each variety is appropriate. Just like how I mentioned before, it is in our country. It's not, although we emphasize in the use of British English in our educational system. However, we do not stop the students or the people from using other varieties of English like American English. It's just that we use British English to standardize the English that the students are learning, to avoid the confusion among the learners. And therefore, even though we give them the freedom to choose what type of English that they are learning, what type of varieties that they are learning, it is what we can do. What we can do to address the issue of the different varieties of English is that they need to know the when or where to know to use the language. Just for example, British English is mostly used in formal settings like in the school or within the classroom, or basically within the educational settings. However, American English is more prevalent in pop culture or in casual setting, where the people can speak to another people more casually without the pressure of being correct. And the goal should be to teach flexibility and awareness of when to use which form, rather than enforcing a rigid preference for one variety. So that's my answer. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
So that's all for our Q&A session. Thank you to all the audiences. Yes.
I hope this talk will bring you something, will bring you benefit, and will encourage you to learn English better after this.
Yes. That's all from us. Thank
Thank you.